Hello and welcome to another Wednesday Walkie Talkie. It's not a Wednesday that I'm doing this, it's a Tuesday. But it's going to go out on a Wednesday. So I can't call it the Tuesday Talkie because it's going out on a Wednesday. So it's a Wednesday Walkie Talkie still. Anyhow, hope you're all doing well. The reason I'm doing this today is because we're due to get hit with another heat wave. But today is actually quite a nice day. It's quite cool, so I thought I'd do the walk, my big walk, which is this one today, and then just do my normal walks for the rest of the week, where it's going to be hotter. So, yeah. Well, it just seems that barely a week can go by in the games industry without there just being negative news these days. And in the past week, hot on the heels of Grand Theft Auto 6 deciding to not come out on physical media. Interesting. Red lines instead of yellow. Bizarre. Anyway, you actually see the old yellow lines underneath. Little bits of them. Anyway, that's not the subject of the video. Hot on the heels of Grand Theft Auto or Rockstar Games. I mean, it wasn't the game that announced it, it was Rockstar, being digital only. Sony then announced that from January 2028, they're not going to do any more physical media for their consoles. Which, if you're into your physical media, in other words, you like to own your games, not just pay for a very expensive rental, that's a blow. That is a really big blow. If you've got common sense, it's a blow. If you're somebody that doesn't mind forking out huge amounts of money for something that can be taken from you arbitrarily, I guess that's not a problem. But then I would question your sanity and say that you do have a problem, just not the problem that you think you don't have, kind of thing. Anyway, and then Microsoft, of course, they can never be outdone on the bad news front. More layoffs, thousands of people being laid off from their Xbox division, which is going to focus on centered around the game development teams and so on and so forth. And you just think to yourself, it's not really working, is it? Gaming these days. I mean, let's take the Sony issue first. Why have Sony decided to do this? This isn't about being progressive. It's not about advancing technology. It's about removing options from the consumer. It's another anti-consumer move from Sony. Something that historically they're famous for. Sony are well renowned for anti-consumer policies, especially when they're in the ascendancy. I warned about this in my video when I was talking about the people celebrating the so-called demise of the Xbox brand a few months ago when Phil Spencer left the company. I warned, this is nothing to celebrate, because Sony in the ascendancy will do really crappy anti-consumer things. And what do you know? I was right. That's exactly what this is. To get into the reeds of it a little bit, why are they doing it? Is it because of the costs? No. Not the costs that you think. It's not about the costs of the game. It's not the cost, of developing physical media and releasing it. That's not the issue. The issue is the fact that they want people to be buying new games, particularly in the AAA space. No swans hanging out today that I can see, or ducks. They're probably on the main bit of water. But yeah, it's because they're not selling enough these big, expensive, super high budget AAA games are just not selling. If you look at recent failures, and they've been really big, high profile failures from Sony, Concord being probably top of the list on the live service front. And you also probably look at Marathon. I mean, nobody's talking about Marathon anymore. I guess that's a failure as well. I mean, I just don't see anybody playing it, and I don't see anybody talking about it. And I follow primarily a lot of gamers on social media, and none of them are talking about it. So, you know, it's not good. So what Sony are doing here with this is they're reserving the right to take stuff off you, to almost force you into buying new games. Think about it. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm not buying that, I'm just going to play the games I've got. You look at people that live streaming stuff, a lot of people live stream old games, classic games. The retro marketplace is quite healthy. And when I say retro, I don't just mean old stuff. I mean just old games, or games that, you know, PS4 games. I know that's not strictly retro, but I'm using it as an umbrella term to just describe people playing old things, not embracing the new. And they hate this. Sony hate seeing people playing the original the God of War on the PS4 and not playing God of War Ragnarok on the PS5, for example. So they want to be able to control your library in its entirety. They can't do that if you've got physical media. They can't control that. You can pop that disc in that console and play that game anytime you want. Now, what they've tried to do in recent years, and they've done it with a reasonable amount of success, is require the single player games to have an always online presence. So they can shut those servers off and mean that you either have a much reduced or zero functioning single player element to the game. But that's very unpopular. The other thing as well is they want to control where and when you play games. They want to have that full control that they don't get with the physical media side of things. They want to reserve the right to be able to change content in games. They want to be able to take things out that may be deemed as being problematic. We see this with movies. There are movies that are on digital download services or streaming services that have been edited, have been changed from their original release. And they want to do that with games. If you've got an old game with something that's in it that might be deemed as being inappropriate in today's fragile world, they want to reserve the right to be able to remove that. And they can. You can remove it if you have to be online all the time, or it's a digital only thing. If you take it as physical media, then you can keep playing it. I can play PlayStation 1 games, for example, on disc, on an old PlayStation 1 console, and there's not a damn thing that Sony can do about that. But with the modern stuff, the modern consoles, well, they can just do that. You've got a game that you have in your library, and there's something in that game that, you know, somebody decides they're going to be offended by because they haven't got anything else better to do, and they kick up enough of a storm, then that can be taken out. And because you have to update that game, you have to physically update the game for it to play. If I say physically, I mean, you know, it will download an update. They can take that stuff out. So they reserve the full rights to change your gaming experience. But the most important thing with it all is money. They want you buying new games. And if you can't play your old stuff, their logic is that you're going to obviously buy the new stuff. The PS6 won't have a physical media drive in it. That much is clear. Which means that you won't be able to play your PS5 games on the PS6 if you own them with physical discs. Just let that sink in for a minute. With the PS5, you could play your PS4 games. But with the PS6, I can't see why it would have a physical media player in it if there's no physical media games coming out. You won't be able to play any PS5 game that you have on disc, or PS4 game for that matter. Now, I've got a lot of PS4 games and PS5 games on disc because I'm a big supporter of physical media. So what am I going to do? I'd have to buy those games again. No, it's not, because I'm not getting a PS6. Sony have screwed the pooch on that. I mean, I've been getting a PlayStation console at launch since the original. I think the longest I had to wait was for the PS5. I had to wait like a month after launch, but it was in the launch window, and that was only because availability was scarce. It was hard to get hold of. But I got it in the launch window nevertheless. So now, you've got the situation of those games won't work on the PS6 unless it has an optical drive in it, which it probably won't, because they've just basically turned around and said they're doing away with it. They're doing away with optical drives. Let's have a look down here. Physical media. So they're not exactly going to release a console that supports physical media if they're saying that even in the PS5 generation in 2028, beginning of 28, there'll be no more physical media coming out for it. For them, they're ditching it. So if you want to play your PS5 or your PS4 games and you have them on disc, well, I guess you're going to have to buy them. Or, repurchase them digitally. Or alternatively, I guess the only thing that you can do is keep your PS5 and hope it doesn't blow up, which it will. It will. The build quality of your modern day games console is pretty wretched, all said. It's not very good. I mean, you can get old consoles that are 30, 40 years old that still work. You know, even launch consoles from 30, 40 years ago. I can guarantee you there's more of them in circulation than launch consoles of the Xbox 360 and PS3 and PS4. I mean, my PS4 Pro just stopped reading discs. The drive packed in on it, which was interesting really, because rather than buy another PS4, I held off to get a PS5 because I knew that my PS4 games would work on there, and I knew that it also had a 4K Blu-ray player in it, and so I also started to buy movies in 4K, which means if and when my PS5 eventually packs in, the PS6 won't have that option. I'll have to go and buy a 4K Blu-ray player just to be able to watch my movies that I bought and paid for, that I own. So it's not a very good situation. But it boils simply down to money. It's about making money. It's not about what's right for the consumer. and that's crap. So now you've got a situation that Microsoft is engineering lack of faith in their brand, in their product. We'll come to them in a second. Sony are generating a lack of faith in their brand and their product by doing away with physical media, just purely for greed purposes. It's just sheer greed. It's because they want you playing the new stuff. You know, and as a side note, the reason why a lot of people don't play the new stuff is because by and large in the AAA space, it's not very good. It's a bit crap. Not just because of not just content-wise, but also the fact that a lot of those games are released broken. And that brings me on to another issue. Refunds. Sony's policy for digital distribution at the moment is quite severe. It's very difficult to get refunds. So if you buy a game and you don't like it, that's tough. That's hard luck. Which isn't really fair, is it? You know, particularly when games cost 70 quid. Or in the case of the new Grand Theft Auto game, if you want the complete experience, it'll cost you £100. And you no longer have the right to get a refund. Or certainly, they will be able to control that. It's not something that I personally have come across because the digital distributed games that I've bought on consoles tend to be because there's no physical media release. And they tend to be either reissues of old games or they're indie games. And I wouldn't want to refund them anyway. They're not big acquisitions. I don't buy AAA games. I'll certainly pay full price for AAA games on console digitally. So I've never really come across the issue of having to need a refund for something. But I mean, Steam's refund system is pretty crap. You know, it's not just you get 2 hours to play the game, but you also have to play it within a relatively short period of time of acquiring it, which also doesn't take into account that changes are made to the game which can render it unplayable on your system. It can be playable when you buy it, but they can then patch something into it that makes it unplayable. I had that with Star Wars Squadrons. When I bought the game, it worked fine. An update was done, and it won't load up because of the rubbish anti-cheat software that's in it. And the only way around it is by basically messing with the configuration of my PC with regards to how many active cores on my processor, and I'm not doing that. I should not have to do that. The game worked fine, but when I wanted a refund off Steam and I had under 2 hours in the game, I only had like 25 minutes. They said no because I'd owned the game for too long. Well, you rendered the game unplayable with an update. But what can you do? I didn't pay full price for it. I bought it when it was in a sale. So this is it. That just emphasizes my point that even in the PC space, digital-only distribution comes with a significant risk, especially when patches mean the game can no longer work on your system. And when you're dealing with PCs, because there's such a diverse range of hardware options, it's very, very difficult to nail it down to one issue. there were a number of people that have the same problem. Valve don't want to know. I've covered that before in a video of what I think of Gabe Newell and Valve. But at least in the PC market, you have other places to buy the games. You're not locked into one store. You can go to Epic Games, you can go to GOG, you can go to EA's own store. I believe that the game, if you buy it off EA, I believe the game actually works. The problem I had was I wanted to play it in VR, and I don't know whether or not EA's version supports VR through the sort of MetaQuest headset. It was actually me wanting to try it in VR, Grows, that highlighted the problem of it not working anymore. But this is the problem. This is where we're at. This is the problem. It's getting warm already. That sun, it's hot. Which of course the sun is hot. That's the idiotic statement for the day. Never mind. But this is what it boils down to. What you're going to do, you've nowhere else to get the games from. With the physical side of things, where are you going to get them from? You're not going to be getting them off Amazon. You're not going to be able to buy a second-hand game, because you're a bit unsure whether you might like the game or not, and some places selling it second-hand, so you take a risk. You're not going to be able to take advantage of any kind of special offers in a store that might, have a discount on the game, or, buy one, get one free, or buy one, get one half price. I discovered many games that I would never have played in the past because of those type of offers. Literally, that's going away. And I say there'll be no competition, so you'll be forced to pay the price that Sony inflict upon you. And it won't be cheap. The number of times I've actually seen the physical copy of the game in a shop cheaper than buying the digital one from the PlayStation Store, I've seen that quite a lot. That's a robin. Hello there. I've seen that happen loads of times. Loads of times. I've seen, the stores fixing prices. Sony, they themselves have been done for changing the prices for games depending on the individual, depending on where you're at. And you're just going to give in to that? People say, well, that's progress. No, it's not. Not everything that moves forward goes forward in the right direction, If that was the case, there'd be no accidents. People are just being willfully stupid when they're talking about this, when they're saying it's not a problem. It's not a problem right up until it's a problem for you. And maybe you've not had the problem because of the existence of physical media. Did that ever occur to you? Because there's been other options out there. Did that ever occur to you? Probably not. Because listening to the arguments that people have in support of this, it's just laughable. And as I've said about this, and I'll say it again right here, if you don't have a problem with a company's ability to come in and take away your games library, you have no problem with me walking into your house and taking all of your stuff. Because if you technically are saying it's okay not to own anything, then there's no such thing as theft. So you have to be okay with that. You have to be. If you're not, then your point falls on stony ground. And that's a fact. And I'm pretty certain you wouldn't think it was great if somebody just walks in and takes all of your stuff. So why are you okay with it when it comes to expensive games? If I walked into your house and emptied your refrigerator of all your drinks that you like, you'd be really pissed off. But those drinks probably cost you a couple of quid. But for something that you might be paying upwards of 100 and odd quid for when you factor in season passes and microtransactions and DLC, you're okay with that. I don't think so. That's why I think it's intellectually dishonest, and I think it's disingenuous when people hold that position. And it's not like that's a fantasy, by the way. That happens all the time. That happens all the time. The number of games that are just taken from the store that you can no longer play or re-download. I mean, we've not even got into the stupid logistics these days of having to install everything onto a hard drive, which means that you can't even have your entire games collection available to you to play immediately. That in itself is a huge backward step, and this is going to make it worse. I've not even got into the fact that how many people out there have a high-speed internet connection that would be required in order to be able to download all of these games in their entirety within a reasonable amount of time. For a lot of people, it's going to take them days. Given the fact that the file sizes are so enormous, and game companies seem to have lost the ability to compress data these days, and because of the fact that everybody is going to be connected to that server downloading, the speed's going to be really slow, even if you do have high-speed internet. I've had that with Steam for the past week. Some of my downloads on Steam have been ridiculously slow. Some have been normal. It's all down to the demand on that particular server. So you're going to imagine how much fun that's going to be on launch day for Grand Theft Auto 6, right? And the people that will be saying, I don't have a problem with digital distribution, will be the people that will be absolutely bashing the keyboards with the bloody elbows in the forehead on the launch day of these games, saying how crap it is. I can guarantee it. They will. They'll be the same people. It's the same people always. Everything's great until it affects them. Selfish, inward thinking, lack of foresight, lack of anything that approaches anything that you could call perception. They're like children. All they do is they live in the here and now. They don't think about the future. They don't have anything that approaches any kind of comprehension of consequence. And these are not kids. These are adults. I'm all right at this moment, so everything's fine. Yeah, but you're driving towards a cliff. Yeah, but that doesn't affect me at the moment. Yeah, but you're driving towards a fucking cliff. And then they go over the cliff and then they start complaining. Get the fuck out of here. Sick of it. It's like people have been conditioned to think a particular way by corporations. Nobody looks at where things are going. They just keep thinking, at this moment in time, this doesn't affect me, so everything's fine. And this is how you end up in a society that is reactionary. Everything is reactionary. There's nothing proactive. We don't do anything proactively as a society, which is how you're supposed to live. We've been gifted with the ability of consequence, understanding where our actions take us. That's a gift, and we don't use it. or we've been taught not to use it. And now you end up with situations where people are happy to pay hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for a games collection. Somehow in the belief that Sony aren't going to take it away, despite the fact that history shows us these companies do. Microsoft, they took away Zune. They took away the Windows Phone. Can you still play those games? Probably not. I doubt it severely. Can you still access that library that you had in Zune? No. Sony have just delisted over 500 films. Even if you've paid for them, you cannot access them. God forbid that your machine develops a fault and you have to buy a new one. A very common thing that affects many of us in gaming and beyond. You're screwed. I saw somebody going on about disc rot and actually came out with an absolute humdinger. I know for a fact that if you've got a DVD that's over 20 years old, it won't work. Or a game, it won't work if it's on disc. Really? Well, that's wrong. Because I was playing on a Dreamcast game the other day. And that game disc was actually scratched and it still worked fine. There's no disc rot. I've watched many old films that I've got on DVD that I've had pretty much since when DVDs first started to come out. They worked fine. There was a handful, and it wasn't disc rot. It was a chemical reaction to the glue that was used in the packaging that misted the discs up, and it was fixable by washing the discs in warm soapy water for about 5 to 10 minutes. It fixed the problem. Something that affected the minority of things out there is not the standard. PlayStation discs that came out in the mid-90s that are 30 years old work perfectly fine today if they've been looked after and not used as a coaster. Just because you are somebody who is cack-handed and can't look after your stuff because you have the mental capacity of a child doesn't mean to say that's what everybody else is afflicted with. The vast majority of us out there are capable of putting a disc in a box and looking after it. The majority of us out there were capable of looking after LPs, vinyl, without scratching it. And that was a really difficult thing to achieve, believe me. We all had that ability. But you're just judging by your own standards. Them ducks over there. Ducks or geese. Probably can't see them. The one thing with this camera is the zoom is a right pain in the arse to get to work. It really is. You probably still can't see it. That's a little drone. Now I can't get the damn thing back. There we go. I say the zoom's not the greatest thing to use on this camera because you have to tap and hold this thing in the corner of the screen and it's not particularly great. But yeah, that right there is your problem. And it's all because people have this fear of missing out. For some reason, it's like, if I don't agree with everything that this corporation does, it'll go away. Well, that's not how it works. Microsoft didn't go away in 2013 when everybody kicked off over the Xbox One and it's always online connectivity and all of the other nonsense that they put with it. Microsoft as a corporation came out at the time and said, well, we can't change these things because it's too late. The software system's been developed and it's all linked into the hardware and stuff. And 2 weeks after that E3 launch, they completely reneged on everything that people were fed up with. The very things that people were saying, not going to buy the Xbox One if it's got this in it. We've got ducks and we've got geese. Marvellous. All of those things that people were upset about, Microsoft reversed, and they did it 2 weeks after E3. We listened and we've changed. Well, you told us 2 weeks ago at E3 when people were complaining about it, that's not possible to do. They told us that it had to have Connect with it. That was another thing that was baked into the software or into the hardware. And yet, strangely enough, I think, was it 12 months after the launch of it, you could buy it without Connect. Connect wasn't needed at all. Another lie. Funny that, isn't it? Anyway, I was going to talk about Microsoft today, but the Sony thing, which got too much. I mean, it's needless to say with Microsoft, I mean, what can you say that hasn't already been said, really? More people laid off. It's not exactly inspiring confidence in the brand, is it? I mean, if a company that it does have money and is a profitable company is laying off thousands of people from its Xbox division, it doesn't really bode well, does it? I mean, traditionally speaking, I'm just going to have a walk around here, actually. I don't think I've been on this little pathway. Let's go around here. Traditionally speaking, when you're about to launch a new piece of hardware, you tend to be ramping recruitment up, especially in your software division, your games division, because you want to launch with games. You want to have a lot of games available to you. And if they're making thousands of cuts to their game studios. That doesn't bode well, really, for me. Surely you're supposed to be making more games right now. Surely that has to be the thing you're doing. But no, apparently not. Apparently they're making all of these changes. Yeah, wonderful, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful. So I don't have confidence in Sony because there's no way I'm entrusting them with my games library. Hell no. I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't trust them with anything. They've proven time and time again just what a complete and utter set of arseholes they are. How anti-consumer they are. So they're just reverting back to type, which I told you in one of my previous videos they would. And I've no confidence in Microsoft either because they're making all these thousands of cuts. It doesn't appear to me that they have any confidence in the Xbox brand and the next Xbox console. They don't have any confidence that it's going to do well. Oh, it seems to me like they're sort of preparing themselves to launch a console, it fall over, and then just shutter the whole division. They've done it before. They did it with Zoom, and they did it with the Windows Phone. Xbox has lived longer than the others because it does still have a sizable installed user base. But that user base is dwindling. And unless they start putting really top quality games out there pretty damn soon, that user base is going to dwindle even more. So, it's an interesting, train going around. A formation swimming there. Geese leading out and the ducks are following. Interesting. So, yeah, it's about all I've got to say about Microsoft, really. I mean, it's just par for the course with them, innit? It's just par for the course. Who's surprised? I wasn't. I mean, they've got a woman who was ahead of AI development at the company running Xbox. Is anybody surprised that people will be losing their jobs at Microsoft and being replaced by AI? I'm not. I mean, why else would you put somebody who's got zero experience in games in charge of your games division, in charge of your thing that plays games? Because AI is what they're going to do. It's right there, people. I'm not making it up. I'm not speculating. I'm just telling you what's in front of you, what's visible. I'm just calling out what I see. I'm not speculating. Anyway, I think I'll call it there. I'll have a walk back now. I'm not going to upload this today because it's Tuesday, but I will upload it on Wednesday. And yeah. Well, just a little side note, what's kind of interesting is that Sony hasn't posted anything on their X account as I make this video today on the Tuesday, since they made that announcement, which I think is about 5 days ago. And that's really, really interesting, because I think that's the longest they've ever gone without posting. So yeah, anyway, I'll wrap it up there. So oh yeah, the other thing is I'm uploading my Resident Evil playthrough videos again now. It's like 2 weeks without them. I want to get through that one, so I'm uploading them on a daily basis again. So anyway, I'll call it there, and I'll catch you all later.